All right, thanks for being here today. We'll start. First and foremost, I want to just make sure that we all understand this is not a webinar like the usual webinar where we are making a presentation about our product or services. We intend this Campfire to be an informal gathering where we will not typically follow any set format. There will be some loose formatting of how we present, how we conduct the Campfire. But it's basically to hang out, discuss topics of common interest, typically outside the area of our work. So, we're typically DataFlex or B-Tree users or Crystal users, etc. But, there are other things happening in the market currently which are of interest to us, like Windows 8. Information technology is moving so fast nowadays that it's not always possible for us to keep track and read up on everything that's happening. But in a wider group, there are people who have their different interests, and if they read up on that, they can come by and share their information and their knowledge with everybody else. So the idea is that we are able to, do these kind of campfires, quote unquote, every month on different topics, and hopefully we will all benefit from that. So what we're going to do is the format is going to be as follows. We're going to start with a 10-15 minute presentation by somebody. Today is Oliver Nelson, who's a senior developer at Mertech, and we're going to be talking about Windows 8. But it won't always be a Mertech presenter. From time to time, we will invite other people to come in and speak. This will only work if everybody participates and asks questions and share opinions. If it's not going to be a one-sided presentation. It's not our product. It's Windows 8, it's Microsoft's product. We just want opinions, and we want to share our opinions about the product and what we have done. And hopefully, you can share your experiences. And somebody who's out there hasn't had a chance to play around with these products can learn from this. In future topics, we can plan on whatever you guys want to do. I think we've already gotten one suggestion for the next topic that we're going to look into. Some ground rules. We have started off everybody as unmuted, but please feel free to raise your hand and we can unmute you so we can speak. If you have any questions, jump in anytime or send a message to everybody. Typically, we'll have a moderator so that we can synchronize all the information, but there is a chat box so you can send out some information if you have any questions on there so everybody can see this. So anyway, coming back to Windows 8, so today's topic. Microsoft has released this Windows 8. I personally, I'm very confused by all the different flavors of Windows out there. I hear about Windows 8, Windows RT, Windows 8 Pro, Windows this, Windows that, and it just makes your head spin. So what are these different flavors of Windows that we're looking at, and how does it affect us in our development? Should we upgrade? Should we not upgrade? What happens if we do upgrade, etc.? And we've done some work on it, and Oliver has been working with us, and we just recently got some new machines that we've been playing around with, and Oliver is going to take over now and talk about that. Oliver?
Yeah, so as we go through this, like you said, feel free to interrupt me. To get started with it here, I want to go over just kind of the landscape as it stands right now. So there are technically 4 editions of Windows 8, but some people group together a 5th edition, and so we'll kind of talk about that a bit. But for the standard Windows 8, basically that is our new equivalent of what used to be 3 editions in Windows 7. The Starter, Home Basic, and Home Premium is kind of grouped together there. That version of Windows 8 has some limitations that for developers may be important, but the primary limitations are limited RDP support. You can't join a domain with it. Has a little bit of a memory limitation, which is kind of high for systems nowadays, but may not be in the future. It's at 128 gigs. But the big thing for developers is that it doesn't have Hyper-V support if you use virtual machines for your development. You, of course, still can use them. They'll just be a little bit slower. So, and, of course, this also can be upgraded from Windows XP Home Edition. If you're coming from there. For the Pro Edition, of course, it upgrades for 7 Ultimate. Some things that you had in those editions also. For developers, not much that you're going to need is in there. But the big question is, what's the Windows 8 Pro? Is a Enterprise Edition. And primarily, the difference is going to be related to the management tools that are in place for dealing with corporate networks. So for a lot of developers, they may be just fine with Pro Edition. The Enterprise Edition is only going to be available on a volume licensing basis anyways. So it's not something that you can walk in and buy off the shelf. But all three of these editions are pretty reasonable upgrade prices. I think the Windows 8 one starts at like $40, so it ends up being pretty decent pricing that way. Windows 8 Enterprise also has some limitations. You probably don't want to use it at home. I can tell you that much. It has some media limitations to it. So those are the three main editions. Then we get into the other two that are kind of a little bit different. Windows RT is the new edition of Windows that is, of course, for ARM-based systems. Those can be tablets or laptops that have non-Intel x86 processors. So Windows 8 RT is completely different from that standpoint in how it works. You can't run standard Windows applications on Windows 8 RT. There's lots of stuff you can't do in Windows 8 RT that you can do in the other editions. For instance, Windows 8 RT only allows you to install applications through the App Store, through the Microsoft App Store. And so that becomes another way that you are entering a little bit different type of Windows environment. The last Windows, and we're going to talk about that a little bit in version of Windows here actually is Windows Phone 8, which has just come out in the last few days here. It isn't technically considered a version of Windows 8, but I grouped it in here because actually with Windows Phone 8, we are sharing some of the kernel core components from the desktop versions of Windows 8 for things like security and file access and some of these other areas. Windows Phone 8 is using the exact same API that is used in the other editions. So some of the development, even down to a phone environment, can be unified between these editions. So it's completely different otherwise, but this is the first version that's really bringing their phone offering in line with the rest. So, and the other thing to note here is with XP, Vista, and 32 to 64-bit upgrades, if you are going to upgrade your version of Windows, it's not an in-place upgrade. Only on Windows 7, and if you're keeping, staying on 32-bit or staying on 64-bit, are you able to do an actual in-place upgrade. Everything else essentially wipes your system. So we're going to go ahead and unmute everybody now so they can go ahead and start asking questions if they need. So note that your voices will be live to everybody else now.
We ran it. Nothing. There were no postings for that account in the time period.
So,
They're doing the same thing you just
in relation to this, with the some of the new things that have come into place with Windows 8, we've got kind of an introduction of a walled garden from Microsoft, and some of that starts with Uefi. If you're going to buy a new laptop right now, there is a decent chance that you're going to come across something that has, instead of a standard BIOS, has this new Uefi, Unified Extensible Firmware Interface. And this is kind of fits into the whole, if you recall in the past, we had something called a TPM or trust, a sort of trust module. This is fitting in there to give Microsoft this beginning to end trust mechanism all the way through for rights management and things like that. The Uefi was developed partially for that, but also because as hard drives get larger and what a computer needs to be able to do with startup changes, such as the real fast startup that we have on new machines, they needed to replace the BIOS. So it had a 16-bit limitation, a 1 megabyte limitation. There are all these different things that were causing issues. So
Oliver,
the effect for, yeah, go ahead.
So how does it, I mean, if I want to install my Windows 8 on my existing notebook, how does that work then?
Mark drinks.
So installing Windows 8, it essentially will work the, if you have an existing notebook, you can just go ahead with the install. if you have a new machine and you needed to put Windows 8 on it again, things can be a little different. For instance, on the laptop I have a Sony laptop in front of me now, and I have a button called Assist. And when I turn on the machine with the Assist button, I get an entirely different startup procedure that actually will take me through recovery or new OS installation. So, you know, completely different there. Can people hear me okay, actually?
Just a reminder, everybody's unmuted right now.
Period and tran.
Yeah.
There we go.
Just reminding everybody that everybody's unmuted, so whatever you're talking in the background, we can all hear it. If you don't want to be, you can mute yourself. Thank you.
So basically, what this all means is that when you're setting up a new machine, then you may not have your standard delete key, F1, F2 key to get into a BIOS if you need to change some settings. On my laptop, for instance, I have a full graphical interface to set up various things on the laptop. So it's quite a bit different that way. Of course, this all fits into this concept where Windows 8 is more of a walled garden than what we've had from Windows in the past. There's lots of places that kicks in. One of them here that I mentioned is with enterprise distribution. In relation to enterprise distribution on Windows 8, if you were going to install an application, for instance, that was not a standard old school Windows application, you might say, if you want to go with one of the modern UI or what used to be called a Metro application, the environment that you do that in is completely different because of all of this that Microsoft has changed. So on Windows 8 Pro, for instance, just to give you an idea, if you're joined to a domain, you can turn on sideloading, which is a way of installing them outside of Microsoft's App Store if you have these modern UI style applications. The apps must be signed, but you can install them on Windows 8 Pro if it's joined to a domain. If you have people bringing their own devices in, if you're a corporate environment and people are bringing their own devices so they're not part of your domain, if you want to do this sort of sideloading, you need a separate product key for Microsoft, and so you have to buy product keys for them in packs of 100 to allow sideloading. So but of course this only works on certain versions of Windows, and so basically this landscape is still developing. It's pretty complicated right now. If you are dealing with Windows RT tablets, you also need these sideloading product keys. To give you an idea on our pricing, for 100 tablets, the cost to allow you to install your own corporate modern UI style applications runs about $3,000. So, go ahead.
For 100 users?
For 100 users.
So this is just so that you can install your custom app on your tablet?
Correct. If you want to install a modern UI style application. So if it's classic Windows application, which is what we have for VDF applications or anything up until Windows 8, those, as long as it's a version of Windows that supports those applications, so something running on an Intel x86 processor or AMD x86 based processor, no problem there. You're going with the other style of application, and you definitely need these side-loading product keys to pull that off. So it kind of makes it very difficult for small shops to do something like this. There is an upfront cost that you have to pay to go there. Okay. So there. Really things are changing quickly in this space, and I expect even in updates to Windows 8, they will probably modify things as we go along to make it a little bit easier. Right now, it's a fairly complicated distribution model that they have in place. I didn't even want to put it up here because I would have had to put so many exceptions on the slide for it that it would have been difficult. So if you are doing that, note that you need to do some research in that area.
So my question, comes to, for me, the question is that why would I want to buy a Windows tablet right now? And
well,
anybody has any, why would you guys want to buy anything, a Windows tablet? Anybody has any answers, like why you're looking at Windows tablet or
Or has anyone bought one?
Or Windows?
Well, I can tell you here there are some cool reasons that I've come across. There are some neat things that we have here. The first one I can't really show you, but for developers using Windows 8, this is more of a laptop use case. But one of the things that you have if you have a multi-monitor setup, they've allowed you to split the taskbar along the bottom. So this bar down along the bottom here can be split across multiple monitors. And the taskbar will only show on that monitor the applications that are running on that monitor. So kind of a cool feature. Another thing, of course, is if you're getting a newer laptop, Windows 7 doesn't have USB 3.0 support built in. It's all been done by third parties. Windows 8 has native USB 3.0. So it's just going to be a more stable environment for some of these new machines. So one of the other cool features, and this is actually really neat, and I haven't talked to hardly anybody who knows much about this, is Windows to Go. And this is an enterprise-only feature, so it's only available for volume licensed customers. Why, I have no clue, because I think everyone should have this. Windows to Go allows you to take a Windows 8 installation with you on a 32 gig USB stick to any machine, plug it in, and boot off it as your own Windows installation. It's almost like what some people were doing with older versions of Windows. There were some utilities that would give you the ability to boot off USB. This is built into Windows now, though. You can boot off it, store your files there, not touch anything on the computer, any malware it has or whatever. You can just come in and basically take your Windows installation with you. So really neat feature. They've also improved screenshotting for developers. That's a useful one. When you press Win Print Screen, excuse me, you get a PNG file stored into your My Pictures folder. So just kind of a neat shortcut for you there that didn't exist before. This file history can be also useful for developers, especially if you're maybe not quite using version control the way you should be. File history essentially does version control for you, at least a type of version control where it stores all the changes that have been made to files on your system so that you can go back to a point in time for a specific file or a group of files. So if you've seen anything in the Apple landscape, they have a solution that's done this called Time Machine, and file history is basically Microsoft's equivalent of Time Machine. So I haven't set that up on my machine to show you, but this last feature here I do have. The Task Manager has been significantly improved. Now, let me bring this up here. Task Manager is actually, it was something a lot of developers used before, but now it's actually super powerful for developer use because it lets you monitor so much information here. So you can see things, of course, it's breaking out per application and process, your CPU, memory, disk, and network utilization. It'll show a status of an app if an app is in some sort of crash state or a sleep state. It'll show all of that in here, how much memory you're using exactly. You can come in here and look at performance on each disk, over the network, everything. It's actually a really great utility. A lot of people use third-party utilities for this before. There isn't a real good reason to need the third-party utilities anymore. So it's all essentially built in now. So you know, those are some of the things I like on Windows 8. There are some things people don't like. For instance, some people don't much care for the new kind of split interface we have with the modern UI being integrated with the rest of the of Windows and kind of splitting it off. So, for instance, when I bring this up, if I want to see what's running on the desktop, you know, I can go here and I'm back to a desktop, but it can be a little jarring for some people. One of the ways you can deal with that is with some third-party utilities. These are some utilities I've played with. One of them I'm using on a daily basis, Stardate. basically gives you back what Windows 8 takes away, your Start button. This utility is a $5 utility available from a company called Stardate, and you know it's a pretty Windows 7-like start menu. You know that's very capable, access to your control panel items and everything. So you know, one of the other things that Stardate does that's pretty cool. I wasn't a big fan. One of the things in Windows 8 that you get is these hot corners for various things, and I'm not very good with hot corners on any operating system. Basically, you could move your mouse to a corner and you would get like what was called a charm bar. Up here, you'd get a list of running apps in the upper left-hand corner. Stardate lets you turn all of that off and basically gives you Windows 8 with a more Windows 7 feel. So, very cool utility.
So, Oliver, is there anything that didn't work, like whatever you were using on Windows 7 before, and when you moved to Windows 8, is there any application that did not work?
Yeah, I've had personally, I haven't come across much yet, but I know for us, one of our one of the other employees went to install SQL Server 2005 on Windows 8, and there just isn't essentially a way of doing it. You can't do that. SQL Server 2005 is what he went to install. You can install SQL Server 2008, but it's in a sort of compatibility mode. With Windows 8, especially with the Microsoft products, they're really trying to push you up to the latest versions.
Okay. And what about?
You may come across other stuff that doesn't work. Some things are just a little quirky because they haven't been updated yet. So I have come across some of that where just something isn't quite right, especially on installers, like the dialog box may be sized wrong, things like that. But overall, most things have worked out just fine for me.
So there was nothing, we didn't need to change anything in the installer like we had to do when we moved from like the old XP to Vista or Windows 7?
No, not much.
Okay.
I mostly went through and changed some stuff myself to make it feel more like the OS I've come to depend on. But that's about it.
Okay. In your opinion, I mean, I don't know if other guys have tried it or not, or have any opinion on this, but is Windows 8 a big jump from Windows 7 or improvement, or is just a moving around some UI stuff and other things? What about internals? Like, does it use memory more effectively? Is it faster? Have they improved some things, or is just like they wanted to be on a tablet platform and came up with these styles and they kind of centered everything around it?
Well, it's kind of
faster.
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I said it boots up faster. There are some internal changes.
Yeah, I've got boot times on my machine, that are like from hitting the power button like 16 seconds, 17 seconds, in that range. Wakes up real fast too. You can wake it up from going to sleep and it's usable in like 2 seconds. So some improvements that way. Internally, it seems to, although they did do a lot of that visual stuff, one of the other things they did was they made it so that it runs better on low-end hardware. So actually, like Windows 8 will work on hardware that Windows 7 didn't work quite so well on. It's more likely to run decent on a netbook even. So I don't know if any of you guys have played with that at all, but that's what they claim.
Okay. Will, you have put some comments there. Can you just share with us if you're able to speak up? Will?
I was muted. So, I played a little bit with Windows 8, not too much, but the times I used it, I was pleasantly surprised, as in the machine I installed it on, an old Windows XP machine that I updated, or better, it's an upgrade, but you have to install new, and that machine worked really, really well on Windows 8. It was very fast. the only thing I don't give much for is that modern interface, but yeah, you just put it away and then it's like you have normal Windows 7 without the interface or without the start menu. But instead of what Oliver did is the start button, I just right-clicked on the taskbar, edit the toolbar, and then you get a lot of menu options actually also from the desktop. And
yeah, that's pretty cool. Someone showed me. Has anyone seen this yet? I just found out about this one like yesterday. I think Sean told me about this. When you press Windows key X on your system, you get to a whole bunch of areas that, as tweakers and people who are doing stuff on their computers that regular users don't do. It's kind of like the back menu, that gives you access to all kinds of fun stuff in here. Administrator level command prompt, disk management, some pretty cool stuff. So Sean told me about that yesterday. Windows key X, I think, is what does it, but there's a couple other things that bring it up too, if I remember. Ways that you can get to it. I think if you have the standard Windows 8, when you go down to the lower left-hand corner, you get kind of a start button, and if you right-click on it, I think you also get the this same Windows key X thing.
Still way too complicated for her.
Yeah. Well, and one of the themes in Windows 8, at least that I've really noticed, is that it's very keyboard centric. So there are keyboard shortcuts for all kinds of stuff, like Windows key I will take you into the settings area here. And if you're in a Metro app, Windows key H will bring up a sharing area. And so these, all of the various things that you do with the Windows key, and very other keys on the keyboard, just it seems to have gone up quite a bit.
Yeah, I think that based on what you just said about Windows 8 and the Windows RT and there's all this enterprise, Microsoft is kind of lost in the two extremes, right? I mean, they have this whole legacy of enterprise systems and that they have to support and they must support, and then on the other hand, you have Microsoft. You have Apple and Google changing the tablet market in their own way, and Microsoft is kind of lost between that, and they have this one operating system they have to try to fit in both extremes, and it's going to be very hard. You can't always, what is good for tablet market may not always work for them in the enterprise market, right? Because they do have to take care of the developers and all these tools to build the application. And
yeah, it's like this fight between the consumer space and the enterprise, really.
Right, so they're kind of like in this middle world now, and they're not completely there. I mean, they're getting there. That's where they're going to be for a while. And the question in the long run, at least in my opinion, is going to be that are they even going to be relevant in the consumer market or not? And they'll just say, well, you know what, let's focus on the developer side and the enterprise side rather than on the consumer side.
One of the things that we came across is we recently bought some new laptops for development, and we were actually looking for laptops that had Windows 7 on them, and we couldn't find ones that were really what we wanted that had Windows 7 on them because we were looking for them very recently, just after the release of Windows 8, and everything had moved to Windows 8 already. I mean, it went just overnight that way, and this laptop, at least the one that we got here, it's almost impossible to get Windows 7 working on it now. Although Windows 7 can do some Uefi stuff, it doesn't do it that well. But there's all kinds of hardware in here that they just didn't come out with Windows 7 drivers for. So as you are looking at new machines, yeah, I mean, I just couldn't find anything. What were you going to say, Will?
Does it have touch interface?
No. No touch interface.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm going to buy one here tomorrow at some fair here in Bangkok, and it's supposed to have the touch interface as well. So I'm kind of curious how that Windows will work with touch interface. I cannot really imagine using that on a Windows machine.
Yeah. The other thing is, and this is a question for everybody, is that we all have applications which use the traditional Windows interface, and Microsoft is going out and trying to be more consumer friendly, so they're bringing that to the desktop. How will that affect the development of these enterprise applications? Like, for example, Will, if you're going out and buying a notebook with the touch and screen as well, how does it affect development of new applications? Because if you're going to run all these Windows styles where people are getting more used to having a touch or blocks and tiles and things like that, what do we need to do as developers to prepare for those kind of scenarios? Can we write an application in one way and then have it work two different ways? Like have a touch interface as well as.
That's the challenge. What will it do? Because we're not used to people using their fingers for pressing buttons.
Well, unless you're an Apple fan.
Yeah, but that's an iPad. That's different. They have other controls. Then on my MacBook Pro, I'm not pressing any buttons on my screen either. So it's kind of a strange marriage between two systems. And so I'm kind of curious how that works out.
Right. So one other thing that Oliver, I don't know if you did any research on this, is that somebody was talking about that this Windows 8 is the most cloud compatible or highly cloud-centric operating system. So what is cloudy about this thing?
Yeah, well, it kind of right from the start, back when I was over here at the walled garden slide, when you're in Windows 8, when you're setting up a new Windows 8 machine, one of the things it'll ask you, actually I'll just go in here and kind of start it. Let's go in and, actually let's do it with Windows 8 way. Create standard user account. If I go to add a new user to this system, of course you can see it takes me into this entirely different interface. And you'll see on my account right now that it lists that I'm linked to a Microsoft account. And basically that's the part of the cloud integration with Windows 8. So my local PC account is linked to a Microsoft account for, it could be for email and for various other things, but what it gives me access to, they call it SkyDrive. It gives me access to cloud-based storage that Microsoft hosts. But in addition to that, applications and Windows itself stores settings about this computer in the cloud, so that if I have, a desktop machine at my house, for instance, and I set up an account there and put in my Microsoft account, all of my settings will get sucked down from, my first machine or whatever other machines I have onto this onto this computer, so that if I have certain desktop icons or a theme set a different way, or all these various settings that you have about your profile are synced into that cloud account and will move from machine to machine with you. So, but of course that doesn't move applications. That's kind of the quid pro in this. Set it up. Microsoft Cloud integration to actually deal with application connections.
Oliver, cutting off a little bit. Okay.
Here.
Yeah, Oliver, I think you're cutting off. You didn't get your last part, Oliver. Sean, you've done some work with Windows 8, right? Would you like to share some of your experience with us?
Well, I've been using Windows 8 as my main development machine. My experience is I like it. Now, unlike Oliver, I'm not using the start button. I still go there with my mouse, but I think that's just muscle memory, 20 years of using Windows machines with a start button. But once you sort of get away from that, it's actually really useful. You just think of your Windows button as your gateway to everything. and you're good to go. You hit the button, like I hit the button, I'll press VI, I'm in Visual Data Flex, return, and it started. And it's just so much quicker for me than, you know, going to the start button, finding it, or clicking on it wherever it was. So yeah, it's overwhelmingly, I think, a positive experience for me. There are little tricks and traps, you know, when you start using it, it's hard to find some things. But if you persevere, look on the web. YouTube was very useful for me. You know, how do I do this? You're good to go, really. It's a good experience. I would recommend it for anyone.
Do you have any issues with other peripheral devices, with the drivers, like printers and things like that?
No issues with drivers. A couple of applications wouldn't load. I can't remember which ones they were, apart from I used an application called Jing, J-I-N-G, which I used to take screencasts with. That doesn't run properly. But, you know, 90% of it works fine, and all the peripherals work fine.
Okay. So that's a positive experience.
Yeah. No, it's front to back, it's been a positive experience. I've got no problems with it, really, at all.
Yeah, you know, Oliver is going to be a little bit critical of Microsoft because he's a walking Apple store. I mean, he has all these Apple devices, so you name it, he has it. So I think he's a little bit biased in that. Now, what about virtualization? Is there anything in here about that helps with virtualization? Does it better? I think that you're moving around with your USB stick is pretty good.
I don't know about the USB stick. The virtualization, I'm using VMware. VMware's fine for me. I don't really have experience of Microsoft's virtualization product because I've always found it a little bit rough around the edges. So we'll see with that. Windows 8 itself, though, virtualizes really well. If you run it inside a virtual machine, apart from the hot corners are a problem with virtual machines. It's good. I'll just say something, you know, with hitting the corner. The corner, Microsoft now use a thing called, there's a special word for it, but you know, you just throw your mouse into the bottom corner. You don't try and line it up with anything. You throw your mouse right into the bottom corner, carry on going until you see the start thing pop up, and then you click. Now, obviously, if you're running in a virtual machine, you know, you've actually got to focus it on that 2 pixel by 2 pixel space, so it's not as useful. Hope that made sense.
Would you be able to show us your screen, Sean, if you give you control?
Yeah, I can do.
Okay. All right.
Can you see it?
Yep.
Okay. So yeah, if you just throw your mouse straight into the corner, you know, carry on going. You can roll it. The start button's there. Same for the top one. You just carry on going. It doesn't matter until the thing pops up, and the same with the bottom, which is your charms. So actually, once you've got used to it, you can, you know, you can get around things pretty quickly. Let me just, no, I won't show you that. I'll just drop that down. Let's open up. So, yeah, straight down to the bottom, straight to your menu. I'll just show you, as I say, absolutely. If Alt-W goes to your settings, didn't mean that, I meant Alt-Q. If you go Alt-Q, it goes, no, okay, I'm going to go to your apps. Your apps, you can control scroll down, and you've got, that's what you'd normally see in your start menu. You know, when you click start and you've got your applications, there's your applications just there. So it's all there, it just takes a little bit of time to find. So, yeah. Anything else you want to show? You want me to show you?
So it's just Alt-Q gave you the list of all the apps that were...
Let me just...
What is that?
Yeah, Alt-Q is all apps. I haven't got these memorized yet, so, but that will come. I think Alt-W is search for settings. Alt-F is search for files. And what other things are there? Yeah, I don't know. Those are your main ones that you need. Oh, Alt-C is for your charms. I don't use my charms that much. That's useful for settings, which allows you to log on to wireless, and also gives you your power and your keyboard options.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. All right.
Anything else?
No, that's good. Anybody has any questions? Want to share some experience?
You know, I just started setting up mine, and
Tony,
yeah, it's Tony Cabrera.
Tony Cabrera.
I barely started playing with mine, setting it up this last week or so, and basically, since I had heard all the, I've heard all these comments about it being difficult to figure out how to do stuff. I just went in and online and looked for what the shortcuts were for the different stuff. So I just, you know, did that first, and after doing that, I was able to navigate, you know, fairly easy, you know, going into the desktop back and doing whatever I wanted to do. But it is true, without looking something up on how what the shortcuts are to do stuff, it could be somewhat difficult to navigating, just because things are not obvious. So unless somebody has told you how to do something, or you read it, it's difficult to figure out exactly, you know, how to do stuff.
Well,
but with the shortcuts, it's, you know, it's fairly simple to do what you want to do.
Okay. So I mean, do you like Windows 8?
So far, it's been positive. Now ask me in a couple of weeks, and I can tell you something else.
Okay. I guess if the system is working faster, and you know, well, I think people like it when you have to kind of look around for stuff, right? I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. It's the next step in our evolution, right? Yeah. All right.
My only thing about it, turning making Windows 8 act like, you know, having the start button and all that, is that if you go in then if you connect to a customer's machine, it's not going to be set up. If we get used to just do you know, working in Windows 8 like it was Windows 7, when you connect to an actual machine that it's a customer machine, they're not going to have it set up that way, and then it's, at least for me, it's, you know, it will be more difficult. So it's better, in my opinion, just to get used to the new interface and deal with it. And in the long run, at least for me, I think that will be better when I'm dealing with customers.
So did you have any problems running Visual Dataflex on Windows 8, installing and running?
I haven't gotten that far on it. I've been just still setting up basic stuff.
I see the Dataflex icon on Sean's machine, so.
Yes. It is working for me, but, well, it's sort of working for me. Because I've been playing around with drivers, so I've crashed it. But yeah, I think it's working. Let's just see. It looks cleaner with the new bar round thing, so it's good. It just works exactly as you would expect it to work. So, not much to say really.
Okay.
Works, things compile. That's all you need.
All right. All right, I think we're hitting our time. It's 12:45. If anybody has any questions or comments, please share with us. Our next, we will be scheduling another campfire like this next month. I think it's going to be on the, Madeline, when is it? Do you know? Remember? I think we're going to be doing it on December 14th, probably, 13th or the 14th. And what we're looking at that for that topic is mobile development. So, you know, there are a lot of, that's another area, Windows 8, Android, etc., and that's something that everybody is interested in one way or the other. So we're going to be looking at topics related to that. One of the participants here had already sent us that they would like to discuss more about data transfer between the desktop and a mobile environment, etc. So I think some of those things will come up. We'll send out a mailing on that. So hopefully you guys will be able to attend that one as well. And if you have any suggestions for any topics, for all subsequent webinars, please, or campfires, please let us know. Oliver, you have anything to add?
No, that was about it. I'm such an internet. That's that, guys.
I'll just permanently mute you. Your internet connection is not really good. All right. All right. So thanks for your time. Hope you hope this was useful. I certainly learned something new. I don't have. I'm not using Windows anymore, but Windows 8 does look interesting, and with all these confusion about Windows 8 Pro and RT, this and that. One of the things that we need to prepare for, I think, looking at is that if this new interface becomes more popular, how does it affect development of applications, especially in the context of Visual Data Flex? How would you write applications that have this new interface and deploy them? I think that's going to be a big challenge for a lot of us to think about. Anyway, thanks for your time. Hope you have a good day and weekend. Bye.
Bye.